You ever have that person in your game group that's nitpicking about every single rule? You might call them a rules lawyer. Well, I got the perfect game for them. Lawyer up. Hey there, everyone. I'm Kylie. I'm Inside Games Unlimited here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and today I want to talk to you about Lawyer Up. So this is a game where it's a two-player game where one person plays the prosecution, one person plays the defense, and you're trying to sway the jury so that you can win your case. Now, the original Lawyer Up came out a few years ago, this small little box here, but we have the new sort of all-inclusive edition because the original came with 2 cases in the box and a couple of expansion cases, but the new one has all those expansion cases inside, and there is a season 2 with 4 more cases inside that, 3 more cases inside that one. So, what you do in Lawyer Up, you're going to choose a side, prosecution, defense, and you're going to choose a case. The cases are infinitely replayable, and interestingly, maybe this is some sort of I don't know, critique of the justice system. In each case, there's no clear who's guilt or innocence. It could really go either way. The truth is determined by whichever side wins the game. So I'll talk a little bit about the art forgery case. So there's an art forgery case. It's sort of your good recommended introductory case. And you can play it as a short game, normal length game, or long game, just depending on how long you want it to go and how deep into the case you want to get. So at its basic level, it's a simple art forgery situation. So you're trying to decide whether this person was selling art as originals, that sort of thing. But with some of the more detailed stuff, you start to get into this whole criminal conspiracy that involves a murder, a woman who's been trying to get justice for her family, that's all sort of behind this big art forgery criminal enterprise. So really interesting stuff. You learn the narrative by reading the cards, reading the different witnesses, reading the different evidence. How the game works, though, is both the prosecution and defense have an identical set of cards. These are basic legal cards. You've got things like, bringing out a surprise witness and bringing in, let's see, different types of arguments, logical arguments, things like that. Other than some flavor text, they're identical for both the prosecution and defense. But one of the things that you'll see at the top of each of these cards are some symbols. These are called bias symbols. There are 6 of them, and there are things like, morality, nefarious things, emotional things, and those are important not only for how you're going to play cards, but also each of the jurors out there is inclined to a certain type of bias. So they're going to be cards that let you sway jurors because you did a certain type of bias. But the reason the symbols at the top are important is because you're going to be playing cards to your side of a witness, and each card has to match one of the symbols of the previous card. So in this case here, I could not play this card after the card behind it because it doesn't have a symbol that matches. However, I could play it after a case like this because they both have that sort of logical symbol, the logical argument there. So you're going to look at your hand, and depending on who has the judge's favor determines who gets to call a witness. There are witnesses that are somewhat neutral, witnesses that favor the prosecution, witnesses that favor the defense, but you can call whichever witness you want. It might be based on the cards in your hand because the witnesses themselves also have these different bias symbols on them. And they have different effects depending on who wins and loses that particular witness. So you're going to take turns after the witness is called, playing cards from your hand. You will have the opportunity, if you want, to object to an argument that the opponent makes. You have 3 objection tokens that you get to use for the whole game. So if they play an argument, you don't like it, you can object. They have to discard that card and play something else. Ultimately, each of these cards has a different amount of points on them, and that's influence. So what you're hoping is when all is said and done, when we've played as many cards as we want to play, going back and forth, passing when you're done playing cards, that you have more total influence than the opponent. If you do, you claim that witness. There might be some bonuses for that. And the difference between your and your opponent's influence, say the opponent had 12 influence and I had 16, that's a difference of 4. You get to use that to sway the jurors. So the jurors each have a bias number on them, and that's how many points of influence it takes to move their little token towards your side. Into the game, if you have more jurors on your side than the opponent, you win. That's the basics of the game. What's really cool is you start with a finding evidence phase. This is so I told you both sides have an identical deck, But the case you're playing has its own set of cards, own set of evidence and things going on. So you're going to look for evidence at the beginning by shuffling that deck, and each player is going to draw 3 cards from the deck. Choose 1 to give to their opponent, 1 to keep for themselves, and 1 to put in buried evidence, which might be something that you can deal with later. You can actually get some stuff out of the buried evidence. So you're sort of setting up your case right at the beginning of the game. Then you're going through and playing. Fantastic game. I haven't had a chance to try some of the other cases. I know one of the other cases is a murder case. That one's a little bit different because it needs to be unanimous. So the prosecution has to get all the jurors on their side, but it's a little bit easier because they can lock jurors that make it impossible or very difficult for the defense to sort of sway those back. So fantastic game. I love the little details on all the cards that sort of bring the case to life. You obviously don't have to care about those sorts of things if you don't want to, but I like being able to read the cards and go, ooh, this is what's going on. And the process of making your case, whether you're the prosecution or the defense, is really cool. So that's Lawyer Up. Great 2-player game. Plays in about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on whether you're playing short, medium, or long games. But I would love if you come on down to Games Unlimited, check it out, pick up a copy, take it home, and unbox some fun.